where we're just slowing down, just slowing down.
Hi everyone, welcome back to a new episode of Dare to be Fearless. So before I get into this episode, I wanted to plug the studio that we are filming at today, which is Metro Podcast. Head to the show notes to find out more about the studio. And of course, if you are looking to write a review or get more involved with Dare to be Fearless, you can do so on Instagram, which is at Dare2 Be Fearless, or my personal Instagram, which is at Alexa_Curtis. So I am very excited today to have an incredible guest in the studio. Many of you may know Julia from a very popular show called My Unorthodox Life. She is a businesswoman with a phenomenal background in corporate. Now she is an entrepreneur. She obviously is on the show, and she's also an incredible activist, and your work is phenomenal online at this time in particular.
So crazy.
So to see somebody with such a big platform obviously talking about a topic like this is just so needed and so important. So we'll get into that.
There be more people like you on the planet. God.
Wow.
Where are the yous? I need more yous.
Oh gosh, no. I know if I could multiply myself or you, I would.
I would definitely not. The world, I don't think it'd handle more than one Julia at a time.
Oh my gosh, and I literally cannot, I just think it's so cool to have obviously seen this show with you on it and then have you sitting next to me and have followed you for so long and the work that you've done. Now I know before this episode I said a lot of people who tune into this show in particular in their 20s trying to figure out what to do for a career, and you have built this incredible company. You also used to work at one of the most popular lingerie brands out there. So Julia, I would love for you to kind of take us back to the beginning, how you essentially got into where you are now.
Well, when I left my community, I decided to start a shoe brand, which of course, if anyone's in the industry, they realize how insane that is, because you can't just start a shoe brand, right? However, because I wasn't in the industry and I didn't know what it actually entailed, it seemed perfectly doable to me. And so I just went and I did it. And I think that, because of the fact that to me, I'm a time traveler. That's whenever I try to explain to people what I've been through, the simplest way of explaining it is, grew up in the 1800s, and when I was 42 years old, I traveled in time to the 21st century. And that's really how it felt. It felt like, I didn't know anything about the outside world, right? So for me, I was like, hey, I just time traveled. If I can time travel, I could start a shoe company, why not? And so that's literally how it began. And the idea was, of course, to turn fashion on its head, because I wasn't going to do things that everyone else had done. I wanted to create a high-heeled shoe that was sensual and super luxury, but also comfortable. And at the time that I came into the industry, comfort was this massively dirty word, right? Women took pride in suffering for beauty. And I thought that was the dumbest thing ever. And so the crux of my shoe brand was to make women feel special, not just look beautiful.
I started a blog when I was 12, and it started as a fashion blog.
See,
and so fashion, though I no longer really am in the fashion industry, I think that anyone who starts in the fashion industry because of something that they wish they had does the best. So when you were
100%.
Little, what was it about fashion? I mean, growing up, did you have siblings? I mean, how much of the fashion part of this kind of became your identity?
Well, growing up, fashion was a big no-no in my world, right? Clothing are meant to conceal and hide and make you as unobtrusive and unnoticeable. I'm not even sure if that's a word. If it is,
you just made it a word.
We made it up.
Just made it a word.
As humanly possible, right? A woman is supposed to be hidden from sight, not seen, not heard. She's the quintessence of behind the scenes in my world, right? So for me, even loving fashion was a big no-no. But my love for fashion started when I was so young. When I was not even 5, I was probably at the time somewhere between 3.5, probably around 3.5 years old. I was in Rome living in an internment camp because my family and I were traded for grain. That's how we came to this country. Oh. And I left when I was 3, but I didn't get to this country until I was 5 because I spent a bunch of months in Austria in an internment camp in Vienna. And then I lived in the Vatican in Rome. There was an internment camp for Jewish people there. And so I lived there for over 6 months. And so when I was there, this little boy, who was 5 to my 3.5, His mother was a famous pianist, and they had left Russia at the same time my family did. And he would go around the encampment and like do odd jobs for people and get like a quarter, a penny, whatever. And he took all this money, and when it was my birthday, he bought me an Italian handbag. And I kept that bag all the way through when I was in my 30s and we moved back from Atlanta, Georgia to New York. Somehow it got lost in the move, but I would have kept it for life. And that bag, that was the first time I started drawing fashion, was that bag. I started drawing handbags, and then I started drawing shoes, and then it all happened from that handbag that I got when I was 3 and a half.
So you immigrated here at what age?
I was 3 when I left Russia and 5 when I got here.
And so growing up, would you say you kind of came from a more privileged background? Were you more in poverty?
Well, my parents came with $2 and a guitar.
Wow.
Yeah, so we had nothing. We were, the quintessential immigrants. We literally we were traded for grain, right? So we didn't speak the language. We didn't know anything about the culture. I was the first Russian family in the whole state of Texas, because this is before Gorbachev, this is before Perestroika, this is Brezhnev, this is still when it's the USSR, right? This is before all the Russians come out in the 80s. So when I came to Russia, out of Russia to Texas, we were the first Russian family in the entire state of Texas. So it was just, we were outsiders right away.
If you had told little Julia then, like, that you would have gotten to where you are now in your career, would you have ever believed that you would have been able to build this with the background that you came from?
I think if you would have told me more, not just in Austin, because in Austin at that moment, everything was possible to me, right? I lived a normal life. I went to school. I was like everybody else. So at that point, I probably would have told you I could be president. I wouldn't have known then that you can't technically be president if you're not born here. But by the time when I'm in Muncie, when my purpose in life is to be a housewife and a mother, if you had asked that person if she could believe being here, the answer would have been yeah, sure. And I also have 3 heads and 17 feet, like it would have been that ridiculous.
That's fascinating. So when you were younger, I'm always so curious by how people become entrepreneurs. Like, is it something that people are made? Can you become an entrepreneur? It seems like you almost had an entrepreneurial spirit at a very young age.
I think it's, let's put it this way, I think it's helpful to be born entrepreneurial. I don't think that you have to be born that way in order to succeed. I think you can decide you want to be an entrepreneur and then teach yourself the traits you need to do it. Right? I don't think there's anything that we're incapable of, other than perhaps singing for me. But other than that, can't sing for shit. However, other than that, to me, honestly, I think, yes, I was always born this way. I've been, I was always an outlier, never really fitting in, always wanting to know and learn and study. Like, I got in trouble all the time, not because I cut class, or because I, was flirting with a man or something really outrageous, like uncovering my knees. I got in trouble all the time because I read things I wasn't allowed to. I studied things I wasn't allowed to study because most of my bookshelf was forbidden to me. So, I love learning. I see things differently than most people. I focus on things differently. And so, yeah, I've always wanted this. I just wasn't allowed to do it for a really long time.
So would you say then you were like quite curious?
Oh, honey, I literally time travel. You got to be really curious to do that. Really miserable and really curious.
What do you feel like you were most curious about, like, as a young girl? Like, if you could have chosen, one thing kind of in the world that you were like, I want to make my life different because I'm curious about this.
Well, everything. Don't forget, I lived in a world that was this big. I had no television, no radio, no newspapers, no magazines. I didn't know anything about what was going on outside my window. So my world was this big. Everything. I was curious about literally everything. And I think, most people, their firsts, their first kiss, their first love, their first date, their first job, they come when they're very young, right? And they're, in their teen years, maybe in your early 20s. And so because they come all together in this rapid pace and everyone around you, those same firsts are happening, you don't actually get to appreciate it. I had all those firsts in my 40s the first time I kissed someone I chose, the first time I went on a date, the first time I fell in love. Like all those things happened to me in my 40s. And so because of that, I appreciated all of them because I recognized the first.
Yeah.
You know, they weren't happening to me as a 17-year-old. So honestly, everything was exciting.
So okay, so you come to America, and then at what age did you start this shoe brand?
42.
So you're 42, and then for the 42 years before that, like how were you paying your bills? What were you doing?
I was a housewife in Muncie, New York, and I taught high school.
Okay, and so were you teaching a particular topic?
Yes, I taught around 17 topics.
Wow.
I'm going to say them in Hebrew, although most of your audience won't understand what they mean, and I'll try to translate them. I taught Chomesh Navi, Chomesh Megillas, Parsha, Yahadas, Historia. Let's see, I'm missing stuff. Chomesh. Oh gosh, so far I can only remember 8. I said Megillas. Okay, Treyasar. Yeah, okay, 8 or 9 actually. Most of them they're all biblical. So the Bible, the prophets, Jewish history, philosophy, life lessons, basically the Jewish holidays. So I taught from like 8 in the morning till 6 in the evening every day because I taught Judaics in 2 different high schools simultaneously. So I would teach in the morning in one and in the afternoon in the other.
Do you ever think back about that time and like wish that there was anything you had done differently or that you had,
Yes, I wish I had left at 18 instead of at 42.
Okay, but
why didn't I leave 30 years earlier?
But there's probably
God
so
damn
many
it.
people who think this, right? Like
Right.
even in their career, if you even make it more broad, right? Like someone who works a corporate job right now and hates it and wants to leave. I mean,
Yeah,
what
just
would you
pick yourself up now. Look, when I'd made all these plans, I had saved up money, I had worked on the side, I had done all this stuff. But when push came to shove, I was too scared to walk out the door. And then the day I did walk out, it wasn't planned. It was because Miriam's teacher failed her, and she said that she must have cheated because she was a girl and the answers she wrote were too intelligent and well written, so it must have been written by someone else. And I just packed my stuff and walked out the door. I had no plan. I had no idea where I was going. We literally drove into Manhattan, and I'm driving around, and I see this hotel with this big W, and I'm like, okay, this is a sign. The W means welcome. We're going there. And so I literally never booked a hotel room for myself before, never slept in a hotel room by myself before. So my answer to you is just get up. You're not going to have all the answers. You're not going to know how to do everything. You cannot figure everything out beforehand. It is going to be terrifying. You are going to make thousands of mistakes. And it's all worth it.
I'm assuming this was not W for welcome. It was like W Hotel.
It was a W hotel.
It was a W
but
hotel.
I didn't know that.
Which I'm assuming also was like it's a nice hotel if that's your first time in a hotel.
I mean, no, so not the first time I was in a hotel.
Sleep
the
in
first
it.
time I was in a hotel by myself.
Okay.
Right. So I would go with my family
Yeah,
into
yeah,
hotels, but it was always with my husband and, extended family and everything like this. This was a hotel I went into.
Yeah.
I paid for. I stayed in by myself with my daughter was by myself to me,
Yeah.
So, yeah. So it was, it was a really special moment, but you can't plan for everything. You can't. And if you're afraid of messing up, guess what? You don't have to be afraid of it because you are going to mess up. So just accept it. You're going to mess up and then move on. But you have to just start. And things just happen and they work. You just have to start.
Would you say that that's what makes you fearless? Like your ability to...
I think, honestly, I decided, the second time my life had to have a tremendous metamorphosis when 2.5 years ago, my soon-to-be ex, who is now on the run from the law, thank you very much. There is literally a warrant out for his arrest. Yeah, but it took 2.5 years to get here until people understood what really was done to me and what's actually occurred. And it's going to start to slowly come out, which I'm very happy for. But it took 2.5 years to get here. 2.5 years ago, I would wake up every day and it was Julia Haart, the thief, the con artist. There was articles that I stole my own car that I paid for. I was literally Alice in Wonderland. It was just the most bizarre upside down moment. And all my worst dreams, like every imaginable nightmare that any person ever has, that someone's going to steal everything that they did, that someone will take credit for their work, that a man again is going to come and destroy my life, like all the things I was afraid of, they all happened. And I survived it, and now here I am, and soon, well, people will see what's about to happen. And so I decided at some point there that I'm just done with fear. Done. I'm not going to be afraid anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And life is not perfect. People are going to come after me. The more successful I am, the more men are going to come after me. I don't doubt it for a second. I'm fine.
I think a lot of young women in particular would be quite enamored by your confidence, but also your ability to say that, like, in a way, I don't need a man, like, I could have done this on my own.
Well, I did do it on my own.
But for someone who perhaps thinks, like, they still need a guy, right? Or they want to, of course, be married by 30. Or...
Right, well, I just think about this. First, I got accused of marrying a guy because he was a billionaire. Then I got accused of not using his money that I married him for, and then stealing money from my own company that I was running.
Why would you do that?
Like, wait, you can't have it both ways. Either I marry the guy for the money, his money, but then I don't use any of his money, and I use the money from none of it made any sense. It was so illogical. And then came the actual fact that by the time I married him, he had $8 million left in his bank account. I mean, it's just a factual accuracy. He had lost everything. And he literally looked at me and said, if you don't help me, we're not going to have money. I supported us our entire marriage. My work paid for our apartment. It paid for our life. It paid for everything. And, you know, the crazy thing is that because my story was so unusual and the story he told was so familiar, people believed that instead of the truth.
Yeah.
Because his story was one we're so used to hearing. You know, successful, hardworking businessman gets seduced by sexy woman who wants fame and power, except the diametric opposite was true. I was the one who worked. He was the one who vacationed. I had all the proof. All the proof. He had none, and nobody cared. And it's taken 2.5 years for everyone to realize where we got to the place where it's discovery, right? That's the part in the case where you have to show documents, you have to show proof. It's taken 2.5 years to get here. And what happens when it's time for that? He disappears. There's literally a warrant out for his arrest. So my point to women is, guys, you really do not need a man. Do I want a man? 100%. Do I want someone to share my life with? 1,000%. Do I need someone? I do not. Do I want someone to love? Because I do love loving. I'm good at it. Yes. But do I ever want to be married again? Literally over my fucking dead body, excuse my language. I want someone to choose me every morning.
Yeah.
I want to live with someone for the rest of my life. And I want us to choose each other and not because there is some kind of legal contract sitting there.
I think I've always thought the concept of marriage is quite bizarre because
It is bizarre.
But then I didn't realize though that, like, if you're in the hospital and you're not married, like, isn't it harder for your partner to?
So it's interesting. You know, I was thinking about that. So here's my philosophy. You ready for this?
Yes.
I think when you're younger and you want to have children, I totally think marriage is a wonderful thing. Because I think, number one, as parents, you need to have the security that the other person is legally required to show up. Parenting is really hard. The other part is your child. I think a child needs that security that mommy and daddy are legally required to be there every morning. I think that that makes a lot of sense to me. However, someone my age, I already have my children. I'm, pretty, thank God, successful, right? So I can easily support myself and my family, my grandchildren. So for me, marriage just makes zero sense. Like, I shouldn't have been remarried. I should never have done that. That was so dumb. However, not making that mistake again. To me, what I really want, what I've always wanted, is just someone to love and who will love me back, So why do I need to put a contract on that? To the contrary, it kind of kills the thing that I want, which is I want to wake up every morning and say, I choose you. And I want him to say, I choose you. Which is kind of cool, right? And in terms of how a marriage contract should be, Now, if this is the way marriage contracts worked, I would get remarried again. It should be like a driver's license.
Yeah, yeah.
It should expire after every 7 years. There should be rules as to what happens with division of everything. And you choose every 7 years whether you renew or you let it drop.
That's such a good
and
idea.
that's it. And then you can be married without the drama, without the courts, without everything else, without tormenting your children. Every 7 years, you make a decision and you say yes or no. That's my giant theory on marriage.
Yeah.
In a nutshell.
No, that's actually quite an I never even thought, of making it like that. And I think that actually should be something.
Why not? Why not do that? It's the only, think about it. It's the only contract that has no expiration date. All contracts have expiration dates.
Yeah.
Except for your marriage license. And think about when the idea of marriage was created. People lived until they were 35. People now are living into their hundreds. So basically, you get married at 30-something, and you're supposed to be the same person and love the same person for the next 70 years. Now, hey, if that works for you, fantastic. But if it doesn't, should you be miserable for 70 years?
No.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Why not create a system where it's not torment and torture on your family, on your children, on your finances to say goodbye? Set up all the rules beforehand, and it expired after every 7 years, and that's it.
It's also so interesting because you obviously have evolved so much. I mean, the first 40 years, right? Not really having any.
Exactly. You don't even know who you are.
Yeah.
Who you are at 30. I mean, I'm what now? Julia 3.0? Next year I'll be Julia 4.0.
Yeah.
Hopefully 5 years from then I'll be Julia 7.0.
Yeah.
I hope to change every day, forget about every year. So, I mean, I would love to find someone who goes through all those metamorphoses with me, but if not, it should not be so difficult to say goodbye.
Yeah.
Not at this stage in my life.
So I want to backtrack a bit back to the business that you started, and then how exactly you got to where you are today. So you started that line.
Yes.
And then what happened from there? I mean, did you self-fund that?
So no, I had investors that
Okay.
invested in it, all who made a massive return on their investment and are still very close friends of mine. I had to stop it when I became creative director of La Perla because I knew I couldn't do that. And so I sold it, gave my investors their money plus a really nice chunk return back. All of them were at my, I would say they were all at my wedding, but let's not talk about my wedding because that was a shit show. Well, actually, the wedding was fabulous. The guy I married, that was the problem. So I became creative director of La Perla, and then I took over EWG and transformed it from a modeling agency that was valued at not at around 70 million. That was valued at 70 million. Took it through 2 years of COVID and an insurrection. Built it into a talent management, and not just a talent management company, but a talent media company, utilizing avatars in 2019, way before anyone else was talking about them, and built a $1.1 billion business in 2.5 years through COVID. So feeling really proud about that, of course, with an amazing group of people, super talented people in there, an incredible group of people who, did it with me. And that's basically what I've done in every industry that I've gone into. I've kind of turned it upside down. And now with my shapewear brand plus body, it's the same thing. It's now an aggregate of clothing, your bra, and shapewear all built in. So it's a tank top or a bodysuit that's also your bra, that's also shapewear.
So when you started this first company, though, you really didn't have much experience. You didn't go corporate and then start.
Oh, no, honey. I had not much experience. I had zero experience. The only thing I experienced was raising children, being a teacher. I did throw a lot of charity events in my community. That was it. I had my intellect. I had the fact that I'm a pretty smart person, and the fact that I love to learn and study. I'm a detective, in the sense that, I'm fascinated by everything. I'm a quick study, and I see what isn't there, not what is there. So I think that's kind of how I've done things.
But how did you get people to give you money?
It's funny. When I started the avatars in 2019, by the time it was 2021, people were waking up and paying attention and being like, oh my God, this is actually the future. Sorry, guys. I need a drink.
Let's take some water, too.
Tommy Hilfiger reached out to me, and he said to me, "Hi, I'm Tommy Hilfiger. I love what you're doing with the avatars. I would love to partner with you." And I can't, it was one of those moments, one of the most surreal moments of my life. He didn't know it, but he has a very important part in the beginning of my story. And I told him, I said, "Actually, you know me." And he's like, "I'm so sorry. I meet a lot of people. I don't remember you." I said, "Well, I may have looked a little different." And I told him the story. So when I first came out of my community, it was November 2012. And in December 2012, literally a month later, I had read an article or something. I can't remember exactly how it happened. But I had found out that there's something called, Miami, Art Basel.
Yes.
Sorry. There was something called Art Basel Miami, and that fashion people went to Art Basel Miami.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided I'm going to go into Art Basel Miami, and I'm going to go and meet fashion people. So I meet these people who are at WeWork. They bring me there, and they introduce me. I managed to slide my way into a party, and and I hear two people talking. Oh, and I'm wearing my wig still.
Okay.
I'm still in my shades. So I'm still covered. I was wearing something, probably the naughtiest thing I'd worn so far, meaning the least uncovered. I was feeling very, very like, oh my God, I'm so brave. But I still had my shades on my wig on my head. And I see this man, and I know who Tommy Hilfiger is, obviously. And like a complete crazy person at a party that I wasn't actually invited to. I take my notebook and my pen, because I was still much more comfortable using them than an iPad. And I walk over, and I'm like, "Hi, I'm Julia Haart. Can you tell me about making shoes? Where do you make product? And I literally bombard the man in the middle of a fashion event with production questions.
Yeah.
And he sat down and he answered them. And he spent 45 minutes giving me contacts with me taking notes in the middle of a fashion event that I literally was not invited to. And I tell him the story. And he bursts out laughing. And he says, "Oh my God, of course I never would have recognized you in a million years." And I said to him, "I've always wanted to know, why did you do it? Why did you say yes? Why did you answer me?" And he said, "Julia, I was terrified." He's like, "You were so driven and you were so laser focused. I was like, this woman's going to eat me alive if I don't answer her questions." And I think kind of when I asked my investors in that period the same question, they gave me basically the same answer. You were so driven, we just knew you'd do it. It's not that we understood much about shoes, but we believed in you. And that's really what it was. People met me and they realized I wasn't going to give up, wasn't going to stop until I succeeded. For me, it was literally succeed or die. That's how I saw it. And I think people saw that in me.
It's very common with entrepreneurs that people say, like, especially when raising money, that they're not always investing in the idea, they're investing in the person.
Exactly.
And so if you're listening to this, right, and you're an aspiring entrepreneur or whatnot, tell me some of those traits, like really into the nitty gritty, because I think like obviously grit, resilience, but I think that ability to bounce back, to have that drive, I do think it's really rare, and I think that's why everyone isn't an entrepreneur.
I agree.
So if you're listening to this and you're like, do I have what Julia has? Like, how do you describe it?
Okay, well, I'll tell you first something that my daughter said. My daughter had this really interesting theory, Miriam, which I agree with. She said that boys learn rejection at a very young age because they're the ones asking girls on a date or guys on a date, right? It's boys who do the asking. And so rejection becomes something that they become very comfortable with and familiar with. It doesn't stop them. One girl says no, it's a game of averages. They go and ask the next girl, right? It doesn't kill them. It doesn't destroy them. They learn how to handle it. So when they become adults and they have to go and present to a VC fund or a PE fund or whatever it is, they're not afraid of rejection because they are fine with it. They got rejected and they moved on and they live and they have a great life. Women get destroyed by rejection. Now, obviously, I am oversimplifying, and obviously there's plenty of women who don't and plenty of men who still do. You understand, we're generalizing here. Miriam's idea was, but it is very clever in the sense that I think that's true. Women are more sensitive to rejection, generally. And you've got to kill that in you. You've got to literally tear it out of your body. Rejection is fine. Think of it as literally, like, you know how like people do cold plunges to make themselves fine? Rejection is healthy. It's going to make you strong. It's going to make you succeed. Don't just be afraid of it. Literally look forward to those moments. I know that sounds insane, and this is the easiest way to do it, okay, because this is my method, because obviously no one likes being rejected. It sucks, it feels really nasty, and no matter who it is, and no matter if you know they're wrong, it still feels awful. You're just human nature. How do you get over it? So I do this thing, and you have to look at yourself in the mirror when you do it. You literally have to talk to yourself every day. There's not a single day that doesn't go by where I don't sit and speak to myself into a mirror. You feel stupid doing it in a mirror, fucking open your laptop, do it there, close the door, no one has to see that you can pretend you're doing a Zoom call. But talk to yourself, watch yourself say the words, I'm smart, I'm going to succeed, they're gonna regret not doing this with me, they're gonna look back at this moment and say, oh my God, we could have made billions of dollars, and we didn't. You have to talk to yourself all the time. You have to be your own cheerleader. And you have to see it. It's not enough to say it out loud. You have to visually see yourself saying the words. You have no idea how good it feels. And I walk out after every morning and I'm like, oh, I can do this. Because I just told myself I could. You know, Coca-Cola and a lot of brands used to do this thing, go back into the 50s and 60s. And I think Coke still does it at movie theaters, where they would have people send in like creative ways of advertising their product. Mm-hmm. And one of it, of course, was to advertise the product, right? But the other thing is that they found that it was all the tens of thousands of people who put in an advertising and that didn't win that were actually the best clients. Because in the process of advertising something and saying how wonderful something is, you actually start believing yourself. So those people who lost, but because they made an ad that said Campbell's soup is so great, they actually went out and bought Campbell's soup because they convinced themselves that Campbell's soup was great. How wild is that? That's human nature. When you hear something out loud, especially if you hear it every single day, you start believing it, even if you're the person doing the talking. Yeah. So literally, I know it sounds crazy and stupid. I'm telling you, it's the secret. Talk to yourself every day, out loud, visual, face to face. You're going to start believing yourself. You'll see.
Do you remember how many times you did that, like before you got kind of your first big yes in business?
Oh, I do it. I mean, I do it every day.
But even at the beginning, before you became successful?
Every day.
Every day.
Every single day. To walk out the door, I had to do it. To walk out of my hotel room every day, I had to do it. I was terrified of everything. I mean, I was just this ball of fear. I mean, I didn't know anybody. I didn't know how things worked. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what fork to use. Like, I didn't know anything, you know? Everything was terrifying. Walking down the street was terrifying. So I just had to, literally, I talked to myself every day. Today, Julia, this is what we're going to accomplish. And we're not going to be afraid, and we're going to be fine, and we're going to do X, Y, and Z, and it's going to be amazing. And then at the end of the day, I talk to myself at the end of the day, too. At the end of the day, because sometimes it's not fine, and it's not amazing, and then you got to talk to yourself again. I'm like, okay. So that sucked, and own it. That sucked. But we're still here. It's okay. We're alive. Can you breathe? Yes. Hands, feet, good. Next day.
So fascinating.
It's the only way I know how to do it.
It really is such a story of just like resilience and just true grit. When you started this original line, was your goal to ultimately sell it and like go take a corporate job?
Oh God, no. I never thought of myself working for anyone, but it was just such a huge opportunity, obviously, La Perla. But no, my dream has always been, it's like this giant freedom thing, right? And it's clothing. It's always going to be fashion. Fashion has to have, I need it. To me, it's uniqueness. It's wearable art. It's interactive. It's the creativity of the designer with the individuality of the person who wears it. There's just something so beautiful about it. But it's also, you know, the businesses I've done, whether it's the shapewear brand or the talent management piece or the things that are coming up, it's always about freedom for women. whether it's freeing them from the discomfort of walking on uncomfortable shoes, to freeing them from having to wear bras altogether because I'm putting it into the clothing, to freeing them from having to stand in a line and having a guy pick them because we put the power in their hands. They're the talent. They have the audience. Everything I've done, it's always been with that in mind, freedom. So, you know, I've got a couple new companies coming up and some new things I've invented, and the underlying thing is always going to be that.
A lot of people in their 20s never feel like they're doing enough, and I think a lot of this has to do with social media, that so many people become so famous or rich or whatever for doing literally nothing. I think there's literally like an epidemic of young adults never feeling like they're doing enough, they haven't accomplished enough, and it's just nothing ever feels enough. So what would you say to those people?
Well, you know, I wish that was true. I'm not sure that's true. I found the opposite. I actually had a person that I interviewed for a position tell me that work was triggering.
Sorry, I don't mean to laugh. I do. I think it's 50-50. I think the entrepreneurial people I know think my way, but everyone else thinks this way. Yes.
In an interview.
That's true.
I said, you know, are there things that, you know, you find challenging or that you have difficulty with? And she looked me in the face in an interview for a job and said, well, I kind of find work triggering.
Did you hire her?
Shockingly,
No.
But I mean, yeah, so honestly, I wish that was the case. I find I'm doing this, I help young women who start companies, and I help them find VC funding.
Mm-hmm.
Not very organized, like it just once in a while, like I'll just make these events and I'll bring in people. And one of them, this woman came to me and she wanted to start an app. Oh my God. Oh, yeah. She wanted to start an app for young people so that young people who quit jobs every six months or less, because not to feel bad about themselves, like to create a community of quitters, basically, so that they could support themselves and not feel bad that they can't keep a job. And I think to myself, why not start an app that helps people learn how to keep a job instead of celebrating the fact that you can't keep a job?
No.
Like that's, but you know, so honestly, I think that if you wanted to succeed, I think the real lesson to learn for young people is it's not coming to you. Nobody's going to give it to you. The universe doesn't owe it to you. You have to go work. That's the only way. There is no shortcut. Doesn't exist.
Yeah, I agree.
I work 20-hour days. I've been working out 20-hour days since the day I left my community. And getting attacked and having everything I worked for stolen, I just kept working 20-hour days on other things. I didn't stop. And you can't. And if you feel entitled, if you feel, why don't I have? If your question is, why don't I? The answer is because you haven't gone and gotten it. Go get it. Okay.
Wow, I literally want to let that sink in because it's so true. There is definitely a problem with people not wanting to work because they don't know how, because everything seems so easy now that you see online.
That's it.
And
that's the problem. They see people who are famous for nothing, and don't aspire to be famous for nothing.
No.
Aspire to be famous for something.
Thank God having somebody say that.
Aspire to do something that changes people's lives. Aspire to succeed while bringing others with you in success. Like, do something.
Yeah. You're so right. And look, no, you're proving it with even what you said about going up to Tommy Hilfiger, right? I mean, that takes balls.
Oh my God.
I mean, you have like all the balls.
If I tell you some of the crazy things I did, I got an investor literally at a restaurant because I heard someone talking behind me at a table, and they were saying how like they can't understand why fashion does this XYZ waste thing. And I was like, but my company does it. And I literally turned around, literally walked over and said, hi, I'm Julia Haart. So sorry, but I heard your conversation, and my company actually produces this way so we don't have waste and it's better for the environment. And I got an investor, literally, because
What restaurant was this?
it was uptown. Oh, okay, wait. They have the best salads. I can see it. I'm abysmal with names. It's like you go a little bit down
Greek food?
below. No,
French?
like a French Italian.
Too many New York restaurants.
Like a Greek. Like they make the most amazing salads. It's very shishi. You go down. Okay, it'll come
You're
to me.
gonna think
I'm
about it.
terrible
We're
with
gonna
names.
circle back.
Horrendous with names. Anyway, so like, you know, but you have to want
Yeah.
it so badly that you can't breathe without it.
Yeah.
There's no shortcuts.
No.
Work. You
Yeah.
gotta work.
No, it's so true, and it's so nice to hear someone who actually did it, right? Like you weren't fed it on a
Oh,
platter.
I mean, I
did
come
it.
literally
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
the 1800s. I came from literally nothing. I started with less than zero, you know.
So with the Netflix show then, how did that come to fruition? Like what was the process? Did they find you? Did you
No,
find them?
I've kind of. Come
you
on. Hello.
You're me.
Hi.
Okay.
I'm Julia Haart.
Yeah.
So this is my life story.
Yeah.
And basically, I found a producer. I
Okay.
convinced the producer to do it with me, and we went to Netflix and we sold it.
And how did you find that producer? Because it's not that easy. Like you have to come up then. They don't
It
pick
was
on
actually
system
a
pitches.
kind of crazy situation. I met someone in the entertainment industry who was working for a company. I told them my story, and they said, Julia, you need to make this into a TV show. And then my husband at the time very much wanted a show about EWG. So I thought, maybe there was a way to put those two together. And so this friend of mine who is really a lovely person, but I don't want to use their name because they work for another company, and so I don't want to get them in trouble. This friend of mine recommended Jeff Jenkins, the person who became my producer, and said, like, guys, you just got to meet each other. Just meet each other. Just hear her story. He introduced me to Jeff, and Jeff and I spoke, and we fell in love that first day, and he was like, yeah, let's do it. And we went into Netflix. It was the only people I presented to. I didn't want it anywhere else. I wanted it to be Netflix. And we presented it to them, and they bought it.
What was the turnaround time in between that first meeting to actually selling this show?
2 years.
Oh wow, that's a lot of time.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
It's a slow process.
And
And,
just-
also, I wanted certain, rights as an
Yeah.
executive producer, so. And as usual, whenever I come in industry, people are like, oh, but you've never done it before. So what?
Yeah, who
Get over
cares?
it.
Yeah.
I've never done any of the things I've done before, but then I go and I do them successfully.
Mm-hmm.
So just let me do my thing. But, yeah, anyway.
But you opened up your whole life,
I
right?
did,
Like
yes.
what was that shift like? So you go from obviously the success you have.
I did it because I thought that my story could inspire other women to change their lives and create their own stories. And I think that in that regard, it's been a tremendous success because we've collected over 700,000 DMs, letters, emails from people as far away as New Zealand, Rwanda, Lebanon, Dubai, telling their stories to me, sharing, the ways their lives have changed. I have people coming up to me on the street every day telling me that people always ask me the question, is it comfortable when people walk over to you? And honestly, I love it because people don't walk over to me and say, oh my God, can I snap a selfie? They come over to me and they say, oh my God, I left my husband who was beating me. So yeah, I love it because people tell me their truths. And it reminds me why I did it. It makes all the blankety blank that happened afterwards tolerable. And it makes me just feel so blessed that women can really help each other and inspire each other. And so to all those people who do come up to me and tell me how the show or their book saved their lives or changed their lives, thank you, really. Because in the times when it was really dark, your messages, those messages made everything. It
But
made
you
all the
also,
difference.
you took that first step, right? By allowing yourself to
Yeah,
be.
I mean, it was terrifying.
Yeah.
But I knew I had to do it. I felt like it was a crazy enough story that it might impact others.
Was there any downside to filming that kind of a show?
I mean, 2022, take a look at any article written about me. That was the downside, right?
But-
I was everything. I think I got called literally everything a woman's ever been accused of, other than witchcraft. Although I'm sure if we look really hard, we will find someone that accused me of that too.
But the thing is, I think people expect, they would say you expected that. Like, you put yourself in front of people, so therefore you allow
Did I
yourself to
expect
be.
my husband to accuse me of theft and seducing him before he hired me when I met him for 45 minutes? No, not really.
No.
Did not see that one coming. I expected, people to judge me and whatever.
Yeah.
I expected she married a billionaire because my husband at the time very badly wanted people to still think he was a billionaire. I kept a secret that he had lost all his money, and so I knew that was going to happen. I was like, okay, who gives a shit?
Yeah.
Let them think whatever they think. But the rest, no. That I certainly did not see coming. It didn't occur to me that anyone would believe such nonsense. I mean, none of it even made any sense. Like, the fact is, as a stupid example, because it's what we were talking about, I met him for 45 minutes before I got hired for La Pearl. Of course, there was 9,000 other meetings with other people in the company, but him personally, 45 minutes. I could be the world's most glamorous, gorgeous, seductive, magnificent woman. I am sorry, I don't think any human on earth would genuinely think that I can create some kind of massive, magical seduction power. I mean, it's just stupid, literally stupid. And yet, people believed it because it sounded familiar to them.
Yeah, of course.
And so, no, of course I didn't see that coming. And it didn't occur to me when it came that anyone would give it any credence, and yet they did. Judges gave it credence. Everybody believed him. I had all the documents. He had his fancy suits and his fancy college degrees and his fancy co-conspirators, and that's all that mattered. And yeah, that was really difficult, but I made it, and I'm really proud that I did, and I think that maybe me living this publicly will help women through their divorces, through when they're attacked and some man tries to steal everything they built. So maybe there's purpose in the fact that this was public too.
Would you have still done the show if you knew what would come, from that, from being so public? Just trying to share a totally almost separate side of your story.
I don't know.
Interesting.
I honestly don't know. It's hard to say because, it was 2022 is a really rough year. So I can't answer that question. Not truthfully and honestly.
Yeah.
I don't know. I really don't know.
Well, and it's hard to answer, right? Because you don't know what
I don't know I just don't know.
But
there's no way to honestly answer it, and I don't want to be dishonest.
Yeah, the platform though that you have now obviously was.
I'm going to use it for good.
Yeah, which is obviously great, and you're doing some incredible work there. So, kind of would love to talk about that. At what point did you decide to make this such a big part of your presence online instead of obviously just talking about, say, fashion or
my other thing? Well, to me, as I've always said, and I got accused of being anti-Semitic when my show came out, and I always said this has nothing to do with Judaism. I could not be more proud to be a Jew, which I think now people actually believe. I'm not okay with fundamentalism in any form. I'm not okay with a community where women have no autonomy, where their biology defines their destiny, but that has nothing to do with Judaism. I could not be more proud. So when I saw the rise of anti-Semitism, I felt that, for all I know, the universe put me in this spot of fame. So when the Jewish people needed my help, I would be there. And now we've started something called Nation, which I really think, if people will sign up, could change everything. And it's a very simple concept. Basically, today on social media, it is cool and popular to hate Jews. If you are pro-Jewish, you are putting your career on risk, you're going to lose followers. And for people who laugh at that, they have to understand that for actors and actresses in Hollywood, for singers and songwriters, for musicians and politicians and sports people, followers are currency. They're power. They're money. So when famous people see that if you support the Jewish people, you lose followers, you lose jobs, they keep their mouths shut and they don't support the Jewish people, even though they actually know that what's going on is crazy. So how do we change that dynamic and make it safe to support the Jewish people? And so I had this idea, very simple. There are 16 million Jews in the world? 16 million? I think there's 16 million. 16 million Jews in the world. There have to be at least 100 million people who are not Jewish, who also think that terrorism and raping 15-year-olds and killing babies and taking grandparents as hostages is not okay, is not resistance, it's just terrorism. So for all those people, and they're sitting at home and they're saying, I'm not wealthy, I can't help that way, I'm not famous, I can't help that way, what am I supposed to do? So we're telling people, I started a website called Nation, ahmnation.com. And Am is nation in Hebrew. And you sign up to Nation, and starting in the middle of September, we keep on pushing the deadline because we need more people to sign up. So we need the people to sign up because this is a game changer.
I'm going to sign up.
You've got to sign up. This is a real game changer because starting September 15th, every morning, what's the first thing you do when you wake up? What do we all do? Check our phones, right? You're going to wake up every morning. There's going to be a push notification on your phone. You're going to hit a button, and you're going to follow 3 people. Now imagine if 1 million people sign up to Omnation. Doesn't cost you anything. You don't have to post anything. You don't have to create content. You don't need followers. You don't have to have power. You wake up in the morning. It takes 3 seconds. You hit a button. You follow 3 people. Now imagine if 1 million people sign up. There's 16 million Jews in the world. Imagine if 8 million Jews sign up. Imagine the power if Noah from Stranger Things says Zionism is sexy, and 500,000 people drop Noah and try to get Noah canceled on Netflix. We put Noah's name up on Omnation. The next morning, Noah wakes up with 8 million new followers. Guess what? People will feel pretty safe to talk about the Jewish people, because if they get attacked, Omnation comes to your rescue. We're the support system to make Instagram, TikTok, and all of these social media places safe to support Jews. And I think that if people will sign up, we can literally change social media. We can change the trajectory of it. We can make it safe for you to speak up on behalf of the Jewish people, because if you get attacked, we put your name on there. You wake up the next morning and you've got 8 million followers. That's how we change this. And so we have to stop the spread of this racist, terrorist insanity. It is going to consume the globe, and they are the only people killing in the name of religion today. And it's got to stop.
How do you feel like the media plays into kind of the certain narrative of what, you know, they want people to see or believe versus the reality?
I just think it's a popularity contest. That's it. It's literally, news has become a popularity contest.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's a lot of hate for Jews. It's not new, unfortunately. And if you hate on Jews, more people will watch your show. Keep on hating on Jews.
It's terrible.
So that's what it is. That's what I'm saying. If we change that popularity, we change everything. We change politics. Why are politicians supporting this? Some politicians. Why? Because of popularity. Well, guess what? If you support the Jewish people and someone says something nasty to you and you wake up the next morning, do you know what 10 million people, the power of 10 real people, live people, not bots, actual humans who are saying, thank you for supporting us. You support us, we support you. We create a safe space in social media. That changes everything.
Yeah.
It empowers people. It empowers organization. It empowers education. It empowers those people who are so clueless as to what actually is happening to see the things that they need to see, the facts that they're being withheld from them, because, again, it's dangerous to be pro-Jewish today.
And this is already launched, or launched?
Yes, it is launched. You can sign up today.
Okay,
Omnation.com.
Yeah.
AHMnation.com.
Well, thank you for your work with that,
Thank you.
obviously.
No, I'm really excited about it because it's such a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Like, if people sign up, we change everything. We change the world. Come on, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Sometimes people just need a little push. They need a little
We need
fearless
to know, like,
Julia.
how to.
Yeah. Exactly. No, exactly. So no, that's great, and I'll link that as well.
Thank you. I appreciate
and
that.
I will.
That's
I will
really
sign up
important.
too.
I think it can be a real game changer.
Yeah. Okay, so I have 1 or 2 last questions for you.
Okay.
One in particular is more like finance driven. So what is kind of the best and maybe the worst financial decision you've made throughout your life/career?
Okay. Best financial decision is working on for myself and being an entrepreneur. Worst financial decision, working with a husband.
Okay.
Never do that. Don't mix love and work ever again, ever. Because then people will just look at your tits and your ass and think that's how you got there.
Aside from
Such
him.
an obnoxious.
Yeah. Did you ever have like a co-founder, or was it just kind of that
No.
with any of your other businesses?
No.
Okay.
I've always been the founder.
So when you would go and essentially pitch those investors, did anyone ever say to you, like, how are you going to do this on your own, especially as a woman in business?
Oh, well, I never do anything on my own. I have the most amazing team. I'm just the queen, madam.
the person behind
I'm the
it.
boss. But I have an amazing team of people, and they're the same people that wouldn't have been with me since La Perla. The head of design who was with me, who was like my number 2 in La Perla, he's still my number 2 in my Shaper brand. He was my number 2 in 1972. Robert Brotherton, who was my, the head of PR in La Perla, worked with me in EWG, is still working with me. Robert Zafiri is the CFO of EWG, is still my CFO. Everybody I have, they've been with me since they started. Because, I treat people with as much loyalty as they give me. So if you're loyal to me, I will literally fight for you. And every member of my team has an ownership in every company that they work with me for. Everyone owns a piece of it. We work together, so I come with an amazing team of people.
When you sold that first company,
Yeah.
that was like that was the most money I'm assuming you had made.
Yes, at the time, yes.
And what did that, do you remember like the moment, like what that felt like, or what, do you get a phone call? Does it just hit your bank account?
Well, honestly, no, because I gave most of it away to my investors because I kind of, I wanted them to feel that. I kind of felt like it wasn't so much about me keeping most of the money. It was more about me having proven that I was a good investment. That choosing to invest in someone who knew nothing about anything, but who was so determined and driven and had a really brilliant idea and the capability to organize, create, and bring it to fruition, that meant a lot to me. I wanted to be a good investment to people, and I think that's what made me feel really good. When I sent the money to my investors, I was like,
But you had, in a way, suffered so much, so like you were so deserving of
Yeah,
all
but I
of
didn't
that.
know that then. Back then, I wasn't really good at thinking I deserved anything.
Got it.
That's taken me a while.
Got it. And sometimes it does, right?
Oh, yeah. I realized the thing I was most afraid of was being happy.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Like, what am I supposed to fight for next,
Yeah.
Warriors, then I realized, warriors are warriors because they win.
Yeah.
Can't be a warrior if you don't win. So sometimes it's okay to just win. I don't have to always
Yeah.
fight,
But did you feel like a sense of security because you had now, like,
No.
made it?
No, because
No.
I didn't think of it as making it.
Okay.
Not even close.
Why?
Because I have a plan in my head, a long-term goal, and until I get there, I'm not going to feel like I made it.
And are you there now?
Oh, fuck no.
No. But you've hit like
Honey,
what?
I'm just getting
But you've hit like what
started.
most people would never have.
Yeah, no. I have a grand plan. My grand plan. So, I'm just getting started.
So what's next for you now?
Well, that's a complicated question because of all the divorce stuff that's happening. So, I'll get back to you in a few weeks.
Do you want to still stay in TV?
Oh, always.
Yeah.
I love telling
Yeah.
stories. Yeah.
That's so cool
love
because it's
stories,
like you never had that experience, right?
Yeah, but I never
before.
I never had the experience
Yeah.
making TV shows. But that's never stopped me. I think
Yeah.
my not having experience and my ability to deep dive, study, understand, and then do things differently is what's made me successful. So people are just gonna have to get over the fact that I didn't go to school.
Yeah.
I didn't go to school. No one gave me
Yeah.
the permission. I wasn't allowed to. I did it anyway.
Would you say a sense of being naive in business has gotten you
And being naive in business has killed me a lot.
really?
And caused me all the trauma that I'm facing today. Being naive and how impossible the things that I wanted to do
Yes.
are, that
Yes.
helped tremendously.
Okay, that's good because I always say that I think
Yeah.
people sketch themselves out so much
Oh, yeah,
because
'cause
they
they-
don't. Yeah.
Like I didn't know how crazy it was
Yeah,
to
yeah,
start
yeah.
a shoe brand,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
I
yeah.
started a shoe
Sure,
brand.
sure.
Yeah.
So, okay, well, can you put the
Yes,
say
all
what the
this
website
stuff.
is?
Yes.
Yes, and then where everyone can, follow you
Yes.
on social media.
So
and-
please sign up to ahmnation.com, ahmnation.com, and we're also on social media at what is it, the underslash? No, period. Sorry. Dot, what do I know? ahm.nation on social media. Buy my book Brazen. It's sold anywhere books are sold. Watch my show on Netflix, My Unorthodox Life. And you can find me on Instagram at Julia Haart.
Julia,
Thank
you
you so
are a
much for
pleasure.
having me.
Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone who tuned in to this episode. I will put all of Julia's links in the description as well as where you can sign up for the website. I love the idea of this being the next Instagram or even better than that because there's so much stuff online that's not good.
Right? I really
yeah.
think that could be a big
Huge,
change.
huge.
Like imagine if you, on your podcast, say something about positive about
Yeah.
the Jewish people, and someone was like, kill her podcast, cancel her podcast. We put your name on that social media thing. You wake up the next morning, you have 4 million
Yeah.
new followers.
Yeah. I love you. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you to everyone who tuned in.
Thank you,
Head to the
guys.
show notes as well as on social media to find out more about Julia or watch the show with her whole family. And I'll see you guys next week for a new episode of Dare to be Fearless.